in it. It's just setting it up.
Something moved.
So we should be live now or in the next couple of minutes. So we'll just wait, let people start logging in.
Yeah.
I feel like the Dalai Lama. I get these things that come up and say, the Dalai Lama is now live. And I'm like, ooh.
If we can do anything to have some of the presence of the Dalai Lama on this live stream, that would be amazing. It's a really good way to start.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you all have agreed to come and talk to everyone live. So I'm sure that people will just pop in and out as we go along. But essentially, I'm Gillian, I'm the Stroke Register Manager, and I've got the great pleasure of having some of the team behind the iREBOUND trial with me today on Zoom, because we're working from all different parts of Newcastle and Melbourne at the moment. So while we're waiting, if we do, this sounds like school really, but we'll do a little go around the room and just get you all to briefly introduce yourselves. So starting with Meredith, if that's all right, I'll just throw you in.
Thank you.
Basically, who are you? What's your favourite fruit? Just to, take the edge off. And then what's your role in the trial?
Okay, well, my name is Meredith. And my love is, I think I'll say mangoes is my favourite fruit. How about that?
Lovely. That's fantastic.
Stroke survivor extraordinaire. I am on the iREBOUND trial. What would you call it? Help me out. What's the word?
The consumer advisor, consumer researcher.
Yes, I was a consumer advisor. So I was at this work from the start through to work out how to get, I don't know, my speech is a bit funny. Can I go last?
Yes, absolutely. And we'll definitely come back to you, but essentially consumer, for anyone who's struggling with what's a consumer mean? Basically, Meredith, you've had a stroke, so you're bringing in lived experience, advice to the team. So we've got people who are scientists with scientific background, people who are health professionals, they bring that expertise. You've had a stroke, you also have exercised and participated in different rehab as a stroke survivor, so you bring that expertise to the team. That's my summary.
I appreciate
so we can
that.
absolutely come back to you. Let's go to Margie, because she's the trial manager. So what's your favourite fruit and what's your actual job in this process?
Okay, thanks, Jill. I would say my favourite fruit is probably a banana. I probably have one of those every single day. But other than that, yes, I am the clinical trial manager for this trial. Now, we have an umbrella name for the trial, which is the Enable Pilot project, but underneath that, we're trialling delivery of some exercise and eating programs called the iREBOUND programs. So it's my job to find people, to help people come into the trial, and also then to get them set up, to get them started and engage with the trial. So what we basically are, we're a telehealth trial of some exercise programs. We call them exercise, they're named exercise programs, but really they're just about moving well. So we're about getting people to join us on telehealth a couple of times a week doing exercise, or getting some advice from our dietitians. And so it's my job to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing. They come into the trial, they get all the information that they need to hook up with us. So that was in a nutshell, but I'm sure we'll explain it a little bit more succinctly as we go through.
Yeah, fantastic. And we're just extra lucky to have you actually, because as a trial manager, you're an exercise physiologist and you've done a PhD working with people who have had a stroke in different types of exercise therapies in the past, as well as just being fantastic at organising and bringing everyone together. So it's nice to have those extra skills, as from my point of view when I'm talking to you about the research. Carly is a dietitian. And what's your favourite fruit and what's your job in this whole machine that's happening here?
Well, I guess because I'm the dietitian, asking me what my favorite fruit is like asking me to pick a favorite child. Um, but if I had to, if I was forced, I'd probably go with Meredith and say the mango because I'm from New Zealand and they were really new to me when I moved here and they were just like an exciting taste explosion when I first had one. And my role in the trial was from the beginning with the help of Meredith, and Meredith gave me lots and lots of help, and along with other consumer advisors, was to help develop the Eat for Health part of the trial, which is we developed a Mediterranean type dietary pattern, and we're helping stroke survivors adhere to a Mediterranean style diet over the space of sort of 10 dietary sessions individually, one-on-one. And I always say, I know we talked about this before, I always like to say that I'm the dietitian with the pencil, not the rubber. So it's all about the food that you need to eat to make you feel better, to help lower your risk. It's not about taking things out. I wouldn't dream of taking food away from people.
Okay. And we'll go back to that because this, yeah, I liked when you said that too before, Meredith. We were chatting just earlier. So my reaction probably wasn't as, oh, wow.
Well, I think because people think of diet, they think about, well, I'm going to restrict something. I'm restricting something. No, it's all about the foods that you need to eat to make you feel good, to lower your risk of having another stroke.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll get more into the nitty gritty of if you take part in this research, what that actually means, as opposed to, because it's not a diet. No. You're not going on a diet.
No.
So we'll come back
eating.
Yeah, it's a pattern. It's a way of eating. We're building some good foundations.
Fantastic. So Emily, what's your favourite fruit? Also, you're in Melbourne, so you're quite remote to the rest of us, even though we've just been connecting this way the whole year anyway. Your favourite fruit and what's your role in the research study?
All right. So favourite fruit, I was going to go the mango, but I'm going to have to just pretend that that's not it. And
you're allowed to say
a variety. So I'll say cherries. Cherries are lovely at the moment.
Very topical.
But I'll just and my role in the trial, well, I'm a physio and a researcher as well. And just like Carly, I've worked with Meredith, who's been amazing, and a number of other people who've had a stroke and clinicians to help design up the iREBOUND Let's Get Moving program. And that's exactly what it says. It's really designed to help people, and so I'm there to help support people to move more and move better so they can be healthier. And a bit like Carly said, it's about building foundations. And so the way we do that is through video calls. So that's how we use telehealth to call people using video in their homes. And part of the program is about doing some exercise with me over that video call. And then it's also about, talking about being active and finding some strategies. So long-term you can move more and be more active. And the whole aim of the trial is to help people to move better or eat for health and hopefully, reduce their risk of having another stroke.
Yeah, because this was designed before COVID happened from my understanding, there's lots of different reasons why. Obviously, doing exercise, getting moving, eating well is really important after a stroke. But this trial was set up because we wanted to be able to reach people who lived anywhere and not only have it so that people who were able to come into a health centre or a hospital could connect with dietitians and physios and other people. So it was set up. It's not something, as I understand, so I'll ask for some comment. It's not something to say that now all rehab should be taken away and everyone should be connected to by video only. That wasn't the point of this. The point of this was to develop something and test whether you could do all of this using video calls. And then COVID happened. And so now it exists. I'm wondering whether or not, is there any restrictions on where people can live? Is this just for everyone in Australia?
Absolutely, Jill. We've restricted our call out to just people in Australia at this stage, but maybe down the track, this sort of program might be available internationally as well. We're really excited to be able to welcome anybody from Australia who has a decent internet connection and that's getting easier and easier as time passes. But there's no restriction on where you live, what your situation is, as long as you've got a little bit of space, a little bit of safe space in your house or wherever you're living, to do some exercise if you end up in the exercise group.
How much space? I'm just wondering. So what does that mean? Do you need to have like a big, I'm doing some things with people at the moment. I've got a little bit of a space here. Do you need this much or?
That's plenty of space. And what we do, and Emily might go through it a little bit more detail in a moment, but basically we have a look around your proposed exercise space, so the area behind you, just to make sure it's safe. So we'll get you to hold up your iPad or your phone or your computer and just scroll it around for us so we can have a look and try to assess whether it's a safe space. I can see Jill's got a chair over there, which is, could be useful for exercise, or it could get in the way. It could, trip her up, which we don't want. So we'll have a look at the space that you think you can exercise in, make sure that the floor is suitable, there's no mats you're going to trip on, all those sorts of things. But other than that, we've got people exercising from all sorts of places, out on the veranda. We did a trial of this in my study over the last couple of years, and we had people exercising at their children's place, their grandchildren's place, while they're on holidays at different locations. So there's really no restrictions as long as we can be sure that you're going to be safe in that environment.
Yeah. And in setting that up too, you worked with lots of people who have had a stroke, some people who had been in a similar trial before, to kind of work out, well, what problems had they, like how have they worked it out in their own lives? And I know that you learnt a lot from what people were telling you, this is how I make it work in my house. Can you tell me a bit more about that process? Maybe Meredith, if we start with you, the people who had a stroke who came in and kind of joined the design team, how did that work?
How do you mean? I don't understand.
Sorry. So when you were setting up and designing how the exercise sessions would work, there was a couple of people who'd had a stroke who came in and they talked with the physios and the other researchers about how to make the sessions work and like what would work in people's homes and stuff like that. Have I got that right?
Well, no, I wasn't involved in that part.
Oh, well, I've asked the wrong person.
Do you want me to jump into that?
Yeah, Emily, if you can tell
Emily, we'll do Emily. That's why I didn't understand.
So Meredith was on our research team. So there were researchers on that team, Meredith, and there were some clinicians as well who also had a background. And we came together and really defined what the research questions, so what did we want to get out of this design? How are we going to make it work? And so Meredith had input not only into what we would put into the program, but also how we would involve other stroke survivors and clinicians in workshops. And so she helped us and gave lots of great advice about how to structure workshops. And we ran workshops with people who've had a stroke and their carers, and and Meredith set up some of the resources for that. And then they came in and spoke with myself and gave, some of those people had been involved in exercise using telehealth and some people hadn't. And they gave us, we talked about what we were looking at doing in terms of a telehealth program to help people increase their activity. And they gave us heaps of great suggestions about what we would need to put in the program, what the information and resources should look like, their preferences, so we could structure the program around that.
Yeah. So we're hoping, I guess, that it's pretty user friendly, because the different users were involved in coming up with this.
Yeah. And even same thing, we had separate workshops involved with to create the Eat for Health side of the program as well. And so I think having stroke survivors and other sort of specialist dietitians involved in the design changed the whole thing fundamentally, because you get first-hand information of what people find difficult or challenging, or what they might need to help them change their diet or include exercise into their daily routine. And it just gave us an absolutely different aspect to the design, I think.
I was going to say,
and now
sorry, Jill, can I say something now?
Yes, please.
I've got something to say. Can you let me? I was going to say, nothing in this project is difficult, and it's not scary. I know it's all about just moving more and eating some other things to help you get healthier and to live a better life. So the exercises they are for stroke survivors. So they're designed for you and your capabilities. So it's nothing to be scared of, any of this project. We've made it like that. So get into it and enjoy it.
Yeah. And for my mind, looking at other things that exist and what's been, it is a bit exciting, because there's been a message all the time that once you've had a stroke, then you must do all these healthy things. And there's a lot of responsibility, I guess, on you. You've had this stroke, it happened, and now you have to be this beacon of perfect health all the time. But you need support with that, because the stroke makes everything harder. And we all know, the average person doesn't always live their life as the beacon of perfect health. So hopefully these kind of approaches, and they're being tested, right, in research. We're not just saying that they work. The whole point of the trial is to test them. It's a support that will make it easy. And it's great to hear that you feel like it is easy now that it's been developed, Meredith.
Yes, because there was no point. That's why I was involved in the research, because it was so I could input to make it so it's stroke friendly. And you all had to listen to me.
And on stroke friendly, so Tracy Ward asked a question about for people with aphasia. So can they take part in the trial? And she wanted to know, is the telehealth kind of delivery, does it work for people who have aphasia? So I don't know, Em, do you want to speak to that? I should have, directed the question to one of you.
Yeah. Look, we are trying to make this program work for all stroke survivors, and we definitely had input in both the projects from people who have had a stroke who have aphasia. And so with that in mind, we've had them review the resources and the way we're delivering things. We are using
by reason.
Oh, sorry. So our
booklets.
Yep.
Booklets and any other information that we might have. So it could be an information sheet, and we've tried to make that accessible for everyone, including people with aphasia. We've also made a real effort to be able to modify things. So if things are a bit not working for you and you need things in a different format, so whether you prefer something audio or video rather than something written, we're able to tailor things or make them work for you. We are using a telehealth platform called Attend Anywhere, and we have another backup platform we can use. These weren't developed by us, and so they have their limitations, but we've had no issues with them so far, and we're really keen to work around all of that. And yeah, we'd love to have everyone who's had a stroke who's able to participate in our trial. In saying that, there are not related to aphasia, but we do have some, to be included in the trial, you do have to be able to walk just a short distance by yourself. That's probably the only, well, not the only, but one of the main limitations. But hopefully in the future we can expand beyond that too.
And it's also important to remember too that we're more than happy to involve your family members or carers. So if you're having issues and a bit worried that you couldn't manage this by yourself, we're more than happy to work with you and whatever your family or home situation is to make this work.
Yeah. So I really love that from the outset, everything was considered. So there's been steps taken to make it as accessible as possible to people. So if you have a communication need in particular, if it's aphasia or if you need things in audio form or visual form, that's available. So that's fantastic. And then I think Tracy's point was, and this is important, is that a lot of the different things like Zoom and like Attend Anywhere, sometimes they're still not completely user-friendly, right? So that is something, if there's a tech developer out there, if there's an app developer or someone who wants to create a platform that is just way more user-friendly, please do it. What's being tested in this study is communicating using the ones that exist, and there's lots of people there to help, and you can ask the team if you have different access needs, if you need captions, if you need things in a different format, and they'll work with that. I believe you can also use interpreters if you need to, if you speak English as a second language, or if you need support in that way. Yeah. But something else,
the thing that we have sort of key elements or essential elements of the program that we need to deliver, but the way it's delivered is completely up to you. Like whatever you need, we'll develop something to deliver what we need to deliver to you that works for you in a way that you can receive it and understand it.
Yeah, and something you said earlier when we were having a chat, Carly, was sounded really important to me, in that it's not just about people coming and saying, oh, I have these needs. You're also delivering, when you're creating this, extra training for the staff so that they know more, and manuals as well, so that they know more about if a person has aphasia, here's some different ways to make sure that they're able to take part.
Yeah, so we had, alongside stroke survivors to help us design the programs, we also had clinicians that would deliver them. And both sides of the coin suggested that we really needed to develop some advice for clinicians to make sure that when you're doing a telehealth consultation, particularly for someone who might suffer from sort of language or cognition difficulties, to make sure that you spend some time, make sure you develop eye contact. There was a list of advice that we kind of went, well, you really need a manual for anyone who's delivering it to make sure that they know how to communicate well with someone who may have some communication problems.
Yeah. So it's not just about making sure that the person with a stroke is being told what to do. You're telling the people who are delivering the therapy, this is what you have to do to make sure that you're both able to communicate.
Yeah.
And speaking of people, Lox joined us. Lox is actually like someone that moves well and eats well. He's like one of my favorite people and motivates me to do my own exercise. So hi, Lox, thanks for joining us. While you're there, if you've got a question, type it in down the bottom while we've got the team around. But yeah, no, I really like the fact, Carly, that there's that kind of, it's like a cheat sheet there as well that keeps reminding people who are talking and delivering the intervention. We call it an intervention in research when it's being tested, delivering the intervention to remind them to do it properly in a way that's easy to understand, rather than just, here's the instructions for how to do it and off you go.
Yeah,
and I think that's the important part of this. One of the key things that makes this trial hopefully work well is that it's not about us telling you what to do. Like if we're talking about exercise or diet, 90% of people will say, I know what I need to change. And you know what? They're usually right. What our job is to help you figure out how to make that change and to make it work well with how your life works right now. Like that's the job of our program, I think.
That's pretty important in the middle of this year that's just been. Yeah. And I wanted to kind of explain as well, because this is something that's being tested. So you're in a research trial, you have a great idea and you develop something that's based on science. So it's not just someone's idea that's not based on anything, but then you have to test it and there's measurements involved for people to measure whether or not it did something. So maybe Margie, can you explain how this works? Because not everyone who comes in the trial has all the different parts of it. Like it's a randomized controlled trial, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Okay, so basically, Jill, and to anybody else out there, we have a research trial whereby people volunteer to be part of it. And at the beginning, what we do is we send you quite a few questionnaires. We have a look at where you're at diet-wise and exercise-wise at the beginning of the program. And we also ask a few questions about your health, and we send you some monitors that you put on yourself and have them on for a week that tell us how active you are during a whole week. We also send you a blood pressure monitor because we're interested particularly in how this whole program affects things like your activity later on, your diet later on, and your blood pressure later on, all of which are really, really important to control. Yep, sorry, Jill's going to jump in.
Yeah, so I was just kind of trying to capture that. There's questions about your health, but also in the trial you get properly measured. And not so that we get to say, oh, judge you, but so that there's scientific evidence about whether or not all the effort that you're putting into doing this stuff that you recommended actually changes something for you. So does it change your blood pressure? Does it mean that you're able to be more active? So you do at the start, before you actually kind of meet up with any of these clinicians, you get them measured first.
Yeah, so it's exactly right. So we've got some baseline measurements. We know where you're at today. So then what we do, we randomize you, which is just like tossing a coin, and we put you into one of 4 groups. Now, our first group does supervised exercise with Emily, or maybe another physio. Another group has supervised telehealth consultations with Carly, our dietitian. Another group gets a little bit of both. And a 4th group gets some advice and education based around Australian guidelines towards eating and physical activity.
Yeah.
So once you're randomised into one of those groups, so we toss a coin, you get put into one of those groups, you then get some supervised sessions for the next 3 months, either 2 or twice a week, I think it is, essentially. And then after 3 months, we come back and repeat all those measurements that we did right at the beginning to see whether the programs had some effect on your health, which is what we're about. And then we change the program a little bit. We don't offer as many supervised sessions for the next 3 months, but we still give you plenty of support to start developing or to continue developing your own personal health goals and behaviours. We then test you again or assess you again 3 months later, so 6 months from the beginning, and then at 12 months we follow you up to see whether the program has had some overall effect on your behaviours and your risk of having another stroke.
Okay, so that's your any change that's happened with you is being measured, but by actually having all these measurements, if you're taking part, you're kind of generating all the science, and you're kind of putting your personal information is going in to prove what works and what doesn't for people in the future. I think that's kind of something that I think that's a little bit cool. But maybe that's just my science nerd coming out. But part of that, like, it is every time you have to get tested after you've had a stroke, it's kind of a big deal though. And I just wondered, Meredith, when you take part in a research study, even though you know you're helping other people by going in it, how do you deal with this whole, like, okay, I'm going to do it, someone's going to test me again and tell me what's wrong with me? I just wonder about that.
It's funny because sometimes you think like that because it's testing things that the stroke has affected. So that, but it's important to go, well, yeah, it's affected, but there's things that we potentially can do to make that better for you. So it's about not necessarily focusing on the negative, although they are testing, I suppose, the negative of what's happened after your stroke. But it's just I've just had a phone call from a researcher about some trials that I'm going to go into next year. And I had those same kind of feelings. Do I want to go in it? Is it the right time for me? And then I had to sit back and go, it's going to help me personally, I think. So it's worth me going into it. And sometimes you've got to just, because sometimes we go through lots of trials and we get asked to go in lots of trials. So it's a matter of you thinking about, is this one going to help you? And what is the outcome for other stroke survivors. So it's what you can get out of it, and also what you can do for other people down the track. It's really important we think like that, I think, anyway.
Yeah. Yep. And look, your efforts in putting yourself through that, which can be uncomfortable, even though you think, yes, okay, I might get personally something out of this, it's contributing to this bigger long-term, better future for people with stroke. And I don't mean that to sound kind of over the top inspirational or something, but it is something that people tell us that they enjoy, and they get that extra enjoyment out of being part of something like this. I've been in some trials, and I know for me, yeah, it kind of feels nice to be contributing as well.
For sure.
Yeah, so lots just, sorry. You
no, I was going to say sometimes that can be a bit tedious for us, but I suppose it's just that short term for what you're going to get out of it, or potentially what you're going to get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say, Locke said, when great minds come together to figure out the solutions, it's so cool. So thanks, Locke. I do like, because I'm not part of this team. I just get the pleasure of, coming and supporting the team with finding people with stroke to take part. And I think it is so cool watching these new things be developed for testing. It is pretty cool. I'm wondering, just before we wrap this up, for people who want to take part in it, Christmas is happening. So nobody's getting started on the program just now, but early next year you can, or going through, like, how long will this be available to people who want to take part?
Essentially, we'll be running the trial for the next 6 to 12 months. I'm more than happy to hear from anybody before Christmas if they are interested in being part of the trial, and we can certainly start you off in the new year. But the sooner we hear from you, the better. So have you got the numbers, Jill, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'm going to put the link to the trial in the comments just underneath this video. And so Margie's number is there, and there's also an email address, or you also can just send us a DM on Facebook, and I'll put, because I have a look at the messages that come in on our Facebook page, and so does Rachel Peake, who's on the stroke register with me. So we'll pass your messages on to Margie. If I can put in the right place, I've just navigated away from the right place. Yes, here. So there's a link in the comments that you can click on, and it's got just some brief information about it, what we've talked about, but and Margie's phone number, an email address, or send us a message, whichever way works for you. And then Margie, you give people a call and organise when next year would work for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can work this. There's no particular start date for the program or a finish date. We've got a rolling recruitment. So as soon as you get in contact with us and we can get some of the paperwork sorted out at the beginning, we do insist that you have some medical clearance to be part of the study, which is fine. So things like that can take a few weeks to get going. So if we hear about you before Christmas, the better. And
medical clearance, that's just going to your GP, yes, and talking to them about whether it suits you? Yes, absolutely.
We've got information that you can take. So there's a letter to your GP that explains what's involved in the trial that they need to just be aware of to make sure that it's going to be going to work.
Yeah. Is there anything else we should talk about today?
I was just going to say, Joe, with the part that Carly's involved with the eating part, don't worry if you have problems with your arm in terms of cutting up, anything like that. The program will adapt to you and your lifestyle and how you eat. So don't worry about things like that. Sorry, I need to get that out.
That's absolutely right. We worked with Meredith and other stroke survivors to develop lots of resources to help with people that might have difficulty with food preparation or fatigue as well, or taste after stroke can sometimes change a little bit. And we've got
taste. That's interesting.
Yeah. So we've developed some little resources to help get some extra flavour if your taste changed, or flavour without salt, or really, I think that's what's different about the Eating for Health program, is that it is really specific to some of the challenges that people with stroke face. And I don't think any other diet programs are like that.
Carly, could you maybe just mention that although we're calling it a Mediterranean style diet pattern, that it is suitable for people from other cultures that,
absolutely.
I've had a few questions from people that were a bit concerned that, they have a very Asian style diet and that you're going to make them eat Mediterranean.
No, it's more about the nutrients that you use, and there's a specific nutrients that are really fundamental to the Mediterranean style dietary pattern that can be absolutely adapted for any style of eating. That's my job. I'll make it work for you.
Okay.
I've even got a participant that's on Light and Easy through NDIS that we kind of went, right, well, how do we fit this in, and how do we?
Okay, that's really good to know.
Yeah. So if you're on a dietary sort of meal delivery service, we can absolutely provide advice on how to incorporate that.
I was going to say, Carly, when you say the Mediterranean diet, can you actually explain why is it called that, so people get an idea of why? Because some people might know what the Mediterranean means.
So it all started from a big old study that looked at different countries or places around the world where people lived for longer, for healthier. And then they found that people from the Mediterranean, which is just countries that are surrounding the Mediterranean Sea, but in particular Greece and the island of Crete, and they found that the people lived in Crete were living past the age of 90 and just dying of old age rather than chronic diseases. And they kind of went, well, why is that? And they did lots of research into how their lives were different. And one of the big things that they found were different was the way that they eat, and also the way that they move, actually. So there's a little bit of both in there. So fundamental. Oh, yeah. We've got a question.
Oh, sorry. Just still coming into this. Joan, who's watching on Facebook, wants to know whether with vitamin K considerations around warfarin, whether the program's appropriate.
Yes, absolutely. And we can, it's individual as well, depending on what your medication needs are. We can totally balance out the vitamin K intake. So we'll just drop a few leafy greens.
Okay. Fantastic. And then Joan, also, if you don't have a printer, then yes, absolutely. We'll send you the forms in the post. We can use email. There's lots of different ways. So whatever you need, short carrier pigeon.
We've got printed books.
Yeah, so you get printed out stuff, so you don't have to try and just be reading off the computer screen all of the time.
Yeah.
Recipes.
Yes,
and the
to
recipes
try some of my recipes. I've got, I'll see if I've got my book here. There's some beautiful big recipes in our book. All aphasia friendly, so there's lots of beautiful big fonts, some icons at the bottom to teach you how to do it, all on one page. So it'll fit in a recipe holder, so you can sit there and be hands-free, which will help you with preparation.
You're really enjoying working on this project, Carly. It's so nice to see your passion. With all of it, it's been really lovely to observe this process, the design process, from where I've been sitting and seeing so many different people who have got a different experience of stroke come in, get involved, different health professionals who have been working in the area for a really long time, but kind of hadn't thought about doing things in a more flexible way. It's been really lovely to see kind of the ideas bounce around and see that it's now being tested. So this is the time where it just needs to be proven that this approach is going to work for people. So yeah, we might wrap this up now. We can absolutely have more of these chats. So we thought we'd just try it. If you've got more questions, please you can put them in the comments, or you can get in touch with us. I'll write our phone number just clearly in the comments as well. So Rachel or I answer the stroke register phone, and we can hook you up with any of the researchers if you have more questions. All right. I think you're supposed to end things when it's still good.
So, on a high note.
On a high note.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, look, enjoy the next couple of weeks. Hopefully you can all get a little bit of downtime after this year, and we look forward to talking to you more about the research happening out of Hunter Medical Research Institute and University of Newcastle. Bye now.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
And now there's this awkward bit where I find where the stop button is for the live stream. Got it.